Today on Law Next, a first look at Westlaw Edge, the next-generation legal research platform just introduced by Thomson Reuters. This is your host, Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to Law Next, the weekly podcast that highlights the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in the legal industry. On July 12th, Thomson Reuters formally launched Westlaw Edge, its next-generation legal research platform. It uses artificial intelligence and advanced analytics to help legal professionals find answers and perform research more efficiently. This was arguably the biggest news to come out of Thomson Reuters' legal division since its launch 8 years ago of Westlaw Next. On the day before the official announcement, I attended a media briefing at Thomson Reuters headquarters in New York City, and I had the opportunity there to speak with two of the executives who led the development of this new platform. Mike Dahn, Senior Vice President, Product Management, who led the overall project, and Jeff Arvidson, Director of Product Management, who is responsible for bringing Litigation Analytics to Westlaw Edge. We'll get to today's interview in just a moment, but first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, on to this week's interview. I started by asking Mike Dahn to give an overview of Westlaw Edge and how it differs from Westlaw.
Well, we've been studying the way that lawyers do their work, and we still see opportunities to improve the amount of time that it takes to do legal research and improve quality of results. So we still see that research can take a really long time. We see that lawyers can make mistakes. And so we've been working on Westlaw Edge for a few years now, where we study the way that attorneys do their work, and we're looking for opportunities to improve that. So with Westlaw Edge, we've got a new sort of level of citator, a new sort of capability where we're applying what we call orange symbols to cases to show that there are cases out there that don't have the right version of the law, and they've never had warnings before, not in our current system and not in any of our competitor systems. And so we want to make sure that lawyers are getting the right version of the law. And so we're excited about the big upgrade that we have to KeyCite.
Let me stop you right there. I just want to start kind of where you started, which is to say there's sort of the five big areas, I think, that you kind of outlined here. One is what you're talking about, which is the upgrade to KeyCite. You talk about next generation search. Talk about integrated litigation analytics, new tool for analyzing statutory changes and user experience improvements throughout. So what you're talking about is starting with the upgrade to KeyCite. What is this new orange flag? What does it tell us that we didn't know before in KeyCite?
Yeah, Bob, thanks. There's when we think about citators, they're so important because when lawyers are doing their work, it's incredibly important to know if the law that they're looking at is good law or not. Like, is this the valid version of the law? And the law is changing all the time. So if you don't have a citator, if you don't have editors that are looking and putting signals on law that's no longer good, it can literally take you hours to figure that out by yourself. If you're looking at a case and none of the cases in the system have these symbols, then you've got to figure out, okay, what are all the cases that cite to this case, and what are all the cases that cite to those cases, and what are all the cases that cite to those cases and cited by those cases, to figure out if the law that you're looking at is good. So we think it's really important to have a citator, and there's actually not many companies in the market that have a quality citator today. And we're taking it to the next level by not just putting warnings on cases that have been overruled explicitly, but we're putting warnings on cases that have been invalidated or overruled implicitly, meaning there's no direct citation to that case, but that case is still stating the wrong version of the law. And so now we're putting warnings on it, and when we've tested that with attorneys, they say, this is a game changer, I have to have this, it's a big deal.
And it's worth noting that because there's so much buzz about artificial intelligence in the market these days, that there is an AI component to what you're doing with the citator.
Yeah, it turns out that it's very difficult, and I think the reason that no company has done this to date is because it would require an army of attorneys to read through all of these additional cases to figure out whether they're good law or bad law. So we've developed an AI that can identify the bad law that is in the cases that have the red flag in Westlaw today, and figure out which cases in the jurisdiction should get this new symbol to warn attorneys that the law is no longer good.
The second major component of Westlaw Edge is what Thomson Reuters is describing as next generation search. The formal name for it is West Search Plus. It's an AI-driven legal research tool that guides lawyers to the answers to specific legal questions. I asked Mike Dahn to explain how this works.
Well, in search today in Westlaw, Bob, there's what we return typically are cases, statutes, regulations. We return documents. We're trying to give the user the right collection of cases and statutes and regulations that apply to their situation. But it's a completely different task to answer a question. Sometimes the user doesn't want to know what are all the situations involving, let's say, adhesion contracts in California. They have a very specific question. And so we've developed new tools, new capabilities to look at the text inside the documents and not only return a great set of relevant documents, but to also return text that is highly responsive to the question that they have and just answer that question. Now, when I say answer the question, I'm talking about research questions. We're not trying to practice law, and we're very clear about that.
Right. And the point was also made, you're not trying to be robot lawyers here.
We haven't built anything that's remotely like what you would think of as a robot lawyer. What we're doing is we're providing new capabilities that get lawyers to the answers that they're seeking much faster than they've been able to do it in current tools.
Yeah, I totally get that. So often when I'm doing research, that's exactly what I want to do. Is I just need a quick answer to something, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, and it's not even critical to what I'm doing that I have the exact right answer. I just need to know generally where do I stand.
I think that's an important point because often questions in law are very complex, and so if you were to ask a lawyer, can I do this, or is this valid? Typically, the answer is, it depends. It depends. Was it an employee or a contractor? Did they have sufficient notice? There's all these things that it depends on. So, the types of questions that we're answering, they're still relatively sort of basic black letter law questions. That said, what attorneys have told us is, okay, but this would be really, even though it won't answer every question that I have, be really useful when I'm doing some research in a jurisdiction that I'm not familiar with, or outside of my practice area, in a practice area that I'm less familiar with. I would really like to be able to get a quick answer. Also, sometimes they'll say, I'm on the phone with a client and I need to be able to answer the question while I'm on the phone. So I don't have time to dig in. I want to just be able to type and get a quick answer, and they're able to do that.
Yeah, and again, we don't have time to get into it in the course of this conversation, but as part of the presentation today, it was made clear that there is some very sophisticated artificial intelligence behind your ability to provide these answers in this way.
Right. We're not just doing simple term searching. We've got to figure out the syntactical structure of the question, the syntactical structure of the text that might be responsive to that question, as well as the semantic meaning, of the language.
Another major feature of Westlaw Edge is litigation analytics. As I said earlier, Jeff Arvidson, Director of Product Management, spearheaded that part of the development, so I asked him to describe this new feature.
So it's consistent with a lot of what Mike was saying, too, in that with Westlaw Edge, we're trying to provide answers. Not just black letter answers, but occasionally those answers and questions derive from litigation trends or the frequency of how often a law firm has handled the type of case, what's the likelihood a judge is going to grant a particular motion, those types of questions. And that's what we've developed within Litigation Analytics. So we've got the entirety of our federal district court dockets, all of our state trial court dockets in the application today. And we can present that information any number of ways. It's really rather impressive around what our capabilities are. Everything from what are the outcomes of cases, what are the key motion types that have been resolved within the course of litigation, how are they being ruled upon, how fast are they being ruled upon, what sort of case type analysis is available out there. Any number of different avenues that you can drill into the data, present the data, always showing your work, always tying it back to the docket, to the motion, to the orders, so that not only is it kind of a academic exercise around trending, but also an easier way of doing legal research. Here are the exact cases. Here are the dockets. Here are the motions and the orders, and it's been pretty well received to date with the customers that we've shown it to.
Right, Jeff, if I could just add to that, I think it's a huge deal what you said at the end about legal research, because often we think of analytics as, oh, well, I want to know the high-level stats or something, but the legal research capabilities that have been added with litigation analytics, now, if you've got to file a motion to dismiss for a particular type of ERISA case in front of a particular federal judge, you can quickly go and see all of the orders, ruling on motions to dismiss for those types of ERISA cases from that judge, and see which ones were granted and which ones were denied, and see the fact patterns and the arguments on both sides incredibly quickly. And the lawyers that we've talked to about that, they said, I need this because I need to figure that out quickly, and they didn't have access to it before.
And the information's always been there, right? It's always been within the dockets, within the cases. It's just that it's been really burdensome for any user to try to figure out how long would it take to rule on a motion for summary judgment. Go look it up and try to figure out case by case by case, linking, doing the math, a legal pad, trying to figure it all out yourself. Now it's a click away. It's seconds away from finding those answers.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fascinating things about analytics is this is data that's been there all along, and you're just enabling lawyers and legal professionals to get insights into that data that just were not available for. The analytics in general are doing that. I haven't tried your product yet, but from what I've seen today, you're doing that to a greater depth. And you mentioned at some point, I think, how many docket records you're working on. But this is it's
a substantial amount of data. So in addition to the machine learning and the AI capabilities that we've brought to bear, we've also invested heavily in just general big data capabilities. We reload our docket collection now almost every single night. So that when we make improvements to the systems, to the algorithms, to everything else, we're constantly refreshing our dockets. We have an editorial workbench that can make any corrections that's out there, and the infrastructure's there to just do more and more with. So this is just the beginning. We're going to continue to expand and show new things and find patterns within our data, not just in litigations, but possibly all sorts of other avenues.
And Jeff, you're talking about almost 8 million federal dockets and over 100 million state dockets, right?
Absolutely.
There's a lot more to Westlaw Edge that we were able to cover in our brief conversation. Another feature highlighted at the media briefing is called Statutes Compare, and it allows a researcher to compare older and newer versions of a statute to see changes in the wording. And at a time when everybody seems to be talking about artificial intelligence in the law, it's important to emphasize that at the heart of Westlaw Edge is highly sophisticated AI. It was developed by Thomson Reuters' own research scientists at the company's Center for AI and Cognitive Computing. But a key point that Dahn, Arvidson, and others made at the media briefing is that the quality of AI depends on the quality of data, and that a big advantage for Westlaw is over a century of editorial work that has enhanced the data through headnotes, key numbers, and citation mapping. Well, that does it for today's show. Big thanks to Mike Dahn and Jeff Arvidson for taking the time to sit down and talk with me at the end of what was no doubt a long and busy day for them. You can, of course, find my reviews at my blog Law Sites, lawsitesblog.com. If you like what you heard here, leave a review at Apple Podcasts, and be sure to subscribe to receive future episodes. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for listening.